Today's halacha, we're going to discuss the 5 isurim, the 5 inuyim, oppressions that are applicable throughout the day of Yom Kippur. The pasuk states that on Yom Kippur, one is la'anis es nafshei seichem, to oppress himself. The Chachamim derived that this includes 5 different forms of oppression, which are decreases of pleasure. All these 5 forms of decreasing of pleasure are of biblical status, meaning that they're asur min haTorah for one to do. Nevertheless, only eating and drinking actually contain the isur of kares, while the others are just biblical without penalty. All the 5 isurim begin starting from Shkia, from sunset of Erev Yom Kippur, and being that there's a mitzvah of Tosefes Yom Kippur, to add to Yom Kippur, one should begin separating from doing these oppressions, from doing these items already a little bit before sunset, although ideally, even the sunset written in the calendar takes what's called Tosefes Yom Kippur, the additional minutes before Yom Kippur, into account. The following are the prohibitions: we don't eat or drink, we don't bathe, we don't anoint, we don't wear leather shoes, and we avoid marital relations. Melacha. Throughout the day of Yom Kippur, the laws of Melacha follow the same laws of Shabbos and not that of Yom Tov. On Yom Kippur, we do not prepare food for after the fast, even after the time of Mincha. However, it is permitted for one to prepare food for a child, and as well as it is permitted for one to touch food throughout Yom Kippur. The isur of eating and drinking on Yom Kippur is on any amount of food and drink. The whole idea of what's known as shiurim, measurements of eating and drinking with less than a certain amount of time, is only for one who's dangerously ill and is directed by a doctor and a rav that it's necessary for them to do so, as otherwise it could be for them life-threatening. Practically, anyone who feels that they medically may have an emergency and require to eat or drink should prepare the shiurim already before Yom Kippur. The shiur amar for food is about 30 cc of a measuring cup worth of food, and in drink, it's less than a cheekful of liquid, and therefore before Yom Kippur one would spit a cheekful of liquid into a cup and drink less than that amount based on shiur. In any event, anyone that has this situation should contact the Rav to find out exactly how they should proceed. On Yom Kippur it is permitted to smell spices, and not only is it permitted to do so, but it's actually praiseworthy for one to do so. In order to increase in 100 blessings, which a lot of blessings are missing on Yom Kippur due to the lack of meals in shorter Shemona Esreis in comparison to the weak Shemona Esreis. However, one must be careful not to place oil fragrance onto his hands, fingers, or clothing or tissues, as there's an isur meiludreach on Shabbos and Yom Tov. There's an isur to create a good smell on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Also, care is to be taken not to say a bracha over those spices that don't deserve a bracha, such as those scented liquids that are chemically based. A bracha is not said over them, and thus tabak does not have a bracha said over it when one sniffs and smells it. The isur of bathing on Yom Kippur incorporates any part of one's body. Even sticking a mere pinky in water is forbidden. One is also not allowed to cool himself down with an open bottle or a wet bottle. Even a wet towel is forbidden to be used to cool oneself down on Yom Kippur. When one wakes up, it is permitted for one to wash mucus from his eyes if he's used to doing so every single day. However, one may not wash any other part of his face. Upon washing in the morning, as we know, we wash only until the knuckles. One of the explanations is because on Yom Kippur, the tumah only spreads until that point. After drying one's hands, one should pass the towel over his eyes in order to remove his sleepiness and recite the bracha v'maver shem. Regarding kohanim, there are places that say that kohanim should wash their hands as usual in the morning, meaning wash their entire hands. And so was said that the Rebbe instructed to certain chassidim. After using the bathroom on Yom Kippur, if one is prior to a prayer or in the midst of a prayer, such as prior to Ma'ariv or within Ma'ariv, Shachris, Musaf, etc., then he may wash his hands up until his knuckles, but not past his knuckles. it is permitted to wash 3 times consecutively. If, however, one is not before prayer, then they may not wash their hands even though they need to say Asher Yatzar unless they dirty their hands in the process of going to the bathroom. And the Alter Rebbe writes that one is encouraged to dirty his hands in order to be allowed to then wash them and thus say Asher Yatzar with purity. In any event, a person is always obligated to clean his hands on an object even if he can't wash them prior to saying a bracha and prior to saying Asher Yatzar. If one touched a covered area or touched the shoes, etc., the same law applies, that if he's in the midst or prior to a prayer, then he should wash his hands, but if not, then he is only to rub them. But Nesiyas Kapayim, the Kohanim, before they go up, they wash their entire hands. As well, the Levim wash their hands, and there are places that write that the Levim are likewise to wash their entire hands if they're used to doing so also during the week. The Isser of bathing in Yom Kippur is only for pleasure purposes. It is, however, permitted for one to bathe in order to remove dirt. Thus, one who became dirty, has mud, feces, blood, and the like on his body, such as the nosebleed, is allowed to wash it off without a problem. Some places can write that those that go to mikveh right before Yom Kippur have to pay attention to dry their hair before sunset in order so they do not benefit from the wetness of their hair. Regarding sicha, anointing, so the prohibition includes placing any lotion on one's body, whether it be oil, alcohol, hair tonic cream, cosmetics, and even spray deodorant are all forbidden to be used on Yom Kippur. Some write that even anti-repellent should not be used. The Isser of wearing leather shoes, so any footwear that contains any leather is forbidden in use. The Alter Rebbe writes that one should also not wear wood shoes, something which in any event is not very common today. Shoes, however, that are made of other material are permitted. There are, however, poskim based on Rishonim that write that those shoes that are not made of leather but are normal weekday shoes that everyone wears, which is imitation leather, should not be used, and rather only those type of shoes and footwear that are not usual to use on a regular basis should be used on Yom Kippur. One of the reasons for this is because Alter Rebbe brings 2 reasons for the Isser of wearing leather shoes. And one of them is so he doesn't feel, and one of them is so in order so he doesn't feel comfortable, so he feels the hardness and the rocks of the ground. And if a person wears regular shoes that allows him not to feel the hardness of the ground, just like leather shoes, then he avoids this whole issue. And therefore they write that one should specifically wear shoes that are not normally worn during the week. Thus, the custom of many is to wear slippers or to wear jogging shoes or to wear Crocs, etc., and matters of the like. Throughout Yom Kippur, being that there's a prohibition of cohabitation, therefore all the laws of harchakis, of distances, apply for a married couple from the beginning of sunset until after Yom Kippur. The Alter Rebbe adds that one should also refrain from excessive speech during this time. Regarding children, the Alter Rebbe writes in chapter 6:16 that children should not be placed on them leather shoes. Therefore, a mother or father should not place leather shoes even on a child that's below the age of chinuch, being that it's forbidden to feed any child of any age, a prohibition. It's likewise forbidden to bathe children on Yom Kippur. It's forbidden to anoint children on Yom Kippur. Regarding fasting, children below the age of chinuch, which is below the age of 9 or 10, are not required to fast at all, even for hours. And based on the Shulchanaruchharav, it's actually forbidden to require them to fast. The custom, however, is to allow a child that requests to do so, to allow them to fast for a number of hours until they decide to eat. If the child asks to eat or drink, he must be given and cannot be refrained. This is all a child below the age of chinuch. A child above the age of chinuch, which is 9, 10 years old, must fast and must be educated by his parents to fast for hours, which is to push off the meal from the normal time. Some write that one should be accustomed that the children of these ages should fast from the night of Yom Kippur until midday of Yom Kippur. Nevertheless, if a child is very thirsty at night and is asked to drink, one may be lenient to give him a drink. Children from 11 years old and on, even though from the letter of the law are required to fast the full fast of Yom Kippur, nevertheless, the custom today as written in Shulchanaruchharav is not to do so, and that is the practical custom that children, until they are bar mitzvah and bas mitzvah, are not required to fast for the entire day.